Welcome back to Lost Legacies, Episode 7, where we're talking about Lost, Episode 7, The Moth. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
So, jumping in, The Moth is essentially a Charlie episode when we see a dangerous cave-in trap Jack, the island's only doctor. Charlie starts going through this whole kind of he's going through withdrawals because he hasn't had heroin in, I think he said, a day and a half. Mm-hmm. So we're getting his flashbacks of actually how he got addicted, while also seeing how they're trying to rescue Jack. And of course, it's based on Charlie, so he's the one who steps up to go and get him. And that's essentially the main plot of the episode, but there's so much cool little moments in this one. What did you think, Sam?
I thought this episode was really good. I did have to say that I thought Charlie's flashbacks were maybe my least favorite part of the episode because I loved everything that he was going through on the island. You know, it's sort of, and it's interesting because I feel like this is the first flashback for me that I wasn't 100% on board with, because it kind of felt a little cliche. You know, he's a musician, but he wants to get out, but they just got signed, and then it's like, okay, but you know, we'll walk away. You know, he's telling his brother, we'll walk away if things get too heavy, and they're like, yeah, and then of course that's not the case. It's not what happens. You know, so I thought it was a little weak, but it was still interesting, you know, and important to see that relationship and that sort of play out. But I loved everything that Charlie was going through on the island. I really loved seeing Dominic Monaghan play this role, you know, be in this character who is, you know, he's feeling everything, you know, taken to 11. All of his emotions are up at 11, and he's projecting all of his own doubts and all of his own fears that he has about himself, the things that he hates about himself. He's projecting that onto everybody else. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, it's not exactly what causes the cave-in, his argument with Jack, but it also sort of feels that way too, you know?
Thematically, maybe.
Yeah, thematically, his argument with Jack, which is really him arguing against himself, causes the cave-in. Yeah, like
yeah. And it was good because this is the first time in this series where we've got to see Dominic Monaghan like get some real like meat to chew on as far as an actor goes.
Right. Yeah, because you know he's been, you know, just like everybody else, he's been there since episode 1, but he's kind of been the character who's, you know, I'd say maybe outside of like Hurley, you know, Hurley is a constant. Charlie is also a constant, but Charlie has been given a little bit more depth, but not really enough, you know, right, to really, you know, seep into until now.
So. And it's going back to what we were saying about how the series was built from the start. Like the big three were Matthew Fox as Jack, Evangeline Lilly as Kate, and Dominic Monaghan as Charlie. They were kind of the ones that the ABC was pushing as quote unquote the leads, if you want to have a lead, you know.
Yeah.
But this point in the series, Charlie hasn't really done much. We've seen him struggling with his addiction, but he hasn't really contributed much to like the actual plot of the show, what's driving it forward. All his moments are character moments, either on his own or with other characters. Even when we go back to episode 1 and he vanishes all of a sudden while they're looking for the cockpit. Oh, and he shows up. And of course later we find out, because he's finding his drugs in the bathroom. But it's even things like that. It's just like, oh, where'd Charlie go? That's kind of a reoccurring thing. And we kind of get, I don't know. I don't want to say the aftermath, but like we start to see the downsides of this because it's all from his perspective, of course, but you see how Charlie is kind of blundering his way across the island. He's trying to help. He's really trying, but he's screwing up and he feels useless, insecure. And then of course we see later in his flashback kind of where that stems from.
Yeah.
And of course the fact that he's going through withdrawal at the same time just like elevates it even higher. But I agree with you as far as the flashbacks go. It's so far the 7 episodes is probably like my least favorite character flashbacks. It is because I don't know. It was a different Charlie for most of those flashbacks than what we're used to. And we see what happened. What we see, like, I guess why he started to do drugs, but it was just like real brief, and then all of a sudden he was our Charlie again. So that transition was kind of rough, and that's probably something they'll explore later on in the series, which I also want to bring up. This episode and last episode with Sun and Jin, their flashbacks spanned like a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
Before we had Kate, Jack, and Locke, and they were all pretty much close together. Kate's was like 6 months because she was on the farm, but not a lot happened on the farm. Most of it was afterwards. But Sun, Charlie, and Jin, you could tell those flashbacks, those were like several years had passed between those flashbacks.
Right.
So as a writer, I could just imagine, okay, this is going to be so juicy. What can we throw in as the show goes on? Where else can we flash into?
Yeah. 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 It's going back to Charlie's flashbacks spanning like that long a time. It was interesting, and I'm interested to see, because I kind of like how he is actually depicted as the stable one, the brother who has a goal. He's the member of Drive Shaft that, like, I'm doing this for the music. This is what I want. And his brother is more
the one writer.
Like, he's the one who's writing all the songs. And his brother is just the one who's like, yeah, we're gonna be big. We're gonna, we're gonna be famous. Starting it being like, you're gonna be the rock god, little brother, and then sort of switches it, a couple of scenes later when he says that he's Drive Shaft. He's the one that everybody's paying to see. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. I think my problem was that the time jump between when we see the moment where Charlie finally, takes the drugs, and then his last flashback, which is in Sydney, where he's trying to convince his brother to come back to the band.
Right.
I think that was probably what sort of made me like, oh, okay, like, sure, I get it. Like, this is the end of that story. This is the catharsis, the catharsis of Charlie's arc, within this portion of the story. So I understand that it was just sort of, I think, maybe a little rough for me. But man, if not, man, like, it sucks, because everybody on this island seems like they were just having a real bad time before they got to the island.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it's like Locke couldn't go on the walkabout, so he's just going home. Jack's just trying to get his dead dad back to LA. Kate's going back to going to prison. It's like nobody is having a good time on Oceanic Flight 815. That's right. Nobody's having a good time on that flight, and then they all get lost on an island. I kind of feel like maybe crashing on the island was probably the best thing to happen for a lot of these people.
So let's talk about this, because like midway through the episode, Saeed and Kate are having a conversation while they're trekking through the forest, which we'll talk about their side quest in a bit, because it's kind of cool. But he's talking to Kate about it. He's saying, like, we shouldn't have survived. So he explains how the tail section of the plane broke off mid-flight, and their section cartwheeled through the air and onto the island.
Yeah.
And he's like, no one is that lucky. We shouldn't be alive. And Kate's just like, can I say, dude?
Sometimes things just happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, Kate. No, they do, but not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was interesting because there's differing beliefs there. Also, we see Charlie's flashbacks start in church. He's in confession. Mm-hmm. He's talking about how he wants to leave Drive Shaft because of the temptation, the sin, you know? Mm-hmm. And he ends up giving in. He's like, all right, let's go be rock gods. And then earlier, one of the very first opening scenes, Kate and Jack are talking again about splitting up, you know, him going to the cave. She's going to stay on the beach. And she's saying, you know, rescue will come. And Jack says, he's like, I just don't have faith. I was like, let me write that down. Like, that's a huge element of Lost, you know, that we're kind of getting here, because we're already seeing, like what Locke said, there people know that there's something different about this island, you know, and now other people are kind of alluding to it in different ways, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that sums up Jack right there. He's a practical man, you know, not a man of faith at all.
Yeah.
So there's a cave in. The one doctor on the island gets caved in. Charlie has to go save him. Michael steps up. We find out what he did, like 8 years of construction. So
yeah,
which means he's really good at looking at caves and seeing what's stable and what's not. And
which I don't know that I fully buy that, but okay.
I understand what he was saying. Like, okay, this is a load bearing wall, so we don't want to mess with this.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, but then at the end of the episode too, Jack tells Case, like, Michael looked at the rest of the caves and said, it should be okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's do it. Let's move in.
It's like, I'm sorry, like construction is different from, you know, naturally formed caves. You know, not to knock Michael. So. Yeah, not to knock Michael at all. I just think that's weird writing right there. One of the things I really loved about this episode is how, even though this is a character-centric episode, this is a Charlie-centric episode, everybody has a moment. Everybody has a really interesting moment talking about Michael, where he immediately sees like everybody trying to pull the stones, and he's like, stop, and starts, you know, like kind of taking charge, you know, saying like, hey, that's the load bearing wall. And what really made that stand out for me was Walt seeing his dad, you know, like take up this role and be this sort of person in charge, because Walt hasn't really seen his dad be anything, you know, just sort of like a victim this whole time. You know,
he literally knows nothing about his dad.
Yeah. So I thought that was a real great moment. And yeah, there's more great moments there, but just you brought up Michael, so
yeah. So to piggyback on that, the only character who we didn't see this week was Claire, who's pregnant and should be in the cave somewhere.
Oh yeah,
maybe she was in the cave and they just didn't realize. Save the doctor!
No, don't tell me that.
Yeah, but she was the only one we didn't see this week, and but everyone else did. And the last 2 episodes have been kind of setting things up to split up everyone, you know? And they've been building on that for a while. One group wants to go be safe in the caves. Another wants to wait for rescue on the beach. But this episode, the cave-in, really brings them together. Literally, because they have to save the doctor. So I thought that was really nice. And it was a good way to include everyone. Including like Boone and Shannon, because I don't think they were in last week's episode, so it'd been a while since we've seen them.
Yeah.
So speaking of Boone and Shannon, let's talk about our side quest. Saeed figures out that we can make 3 antennae, place them strategically on high points of the island, and he can triangulate where the mysterious French signal is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that sounds cool. But there's only so much battery, so that I'll have to do it at once. So it's not so complicated. It's complicated. They have to go into separate groups, each put the things, fire a bottle rocket, and they all turn their thing on together. I was like, okay, easy peasy. Except one of them is Boone, and I wrote in my notes, oh no, our only chance of rescue is in the hands of Boone. Well, then the cave-in happens, and he goes to help, and then I wrote, oh no, our only chance of rescue is in the hands of Shannon.
Which is probably worse.
Yeah, but it ended up turning all right. Like she did her part. I thought that was awesome. She's just talking about like California boys, and she's like, she realized she forgot, so she had to fire the bottle rocket.
Yeah.
And so before we talk about how that ends, Sawyer decides to join the group.
Mm-hmm.
And this was really interesting because Sawyer hears about the cave-in, and he goes to tell Kate.
Yeah.
But when he gets there, Kate just totally writes him off very harshly, but deservedly. And because he's a dick. And she just writes him off like that. And like, you could tell like it really hits him hard. He's actually trying to help. And he's like, so then he keeps it quiet. He's like, I'm just here to help. So then later, as they're going through with the quest, with the mission to set up the antenna, he just coolly and casually drops the fact that the doc's dead. And like Kate flips out. She's freaking out. She takes off. And Sawyer's just like relishing in it. And it was so twisted. Like, it had been a while since we had seen Sawyer. Like, he's always a dick. But it'd been a while since we saw him like almost cruel. You know, you're like, oh, dude. And that's always something tricky when you're doing a character like this, because Sawyer is so charming, you know? He has that charm, and like, God, you son of a bitch. I don't like you, but you can stay. So it's really easy to make, and I see shows do it all the time, it's really easy to make the bad guy character, the wild card, oh, he's just a hot-headed good guy, you know?
Yeah.
You just don't understand him. So then to do this with Sawyer, like, oh, I forgot. This guy's really like a bad dude.
Yeah.
Shit. So that was a nice moment to kind of keep that fresh and like, ooh, that was cold, man. Especially this episode that's kind of all about bringing, like we were just saying, bringing the survivors back together. Sawyer's just kind of breaking off, doing his own thing, and like burning bridges. And I'm like, oh, damn, dude. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then since we're talking about the side quest, at the end, Saeed finally figures out the device. He gets the signal. He's able to triangulate the location. Boom. Someone takes him out.
Yep.
With like, I don't know, a tree branch or something.
Yeah. Take him out as in knock him out. He is knocked out.
That we know of.
He is knocked out. I know
we
that
will find out next week.
Oh my goodness. He's knocked out.
Yeah. So that's interesting because I completely forgot that happened. So I'm just watching it and I was like,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you to place your bets. Who do you think did it?
I think it's Locke.
Think it's Locke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, obviously, the prime suspect and the better suspect is Sawyer. Obviously, because, you know, he doesn't like Saeed. And, you know, it'd be like the perfect, you know, sort of like screw you to Kate and him and Jack, you know, and all their BS, you know. Sawyer's just going to screw everything up. However, as far as we know, he was the person who lit off the other bottle rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kate left him with the bottle rocket and the other antenna.
Yeah.
So he has an alibi, which is why I don't think it's him. The only other person who I think would, unless there's some other psychopath running around on the island, is Locke.
He was also the only one not helping at the cave-in.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would he? He asked Charlie, like, are there people there? Are there people helping Jack, like trying to get him out? Like, yeah. Yeah. Like there's a bunch of people over there. It's like he's doing his own thing. He killed the boar. He's skinning the boar, trying, to like get that ready. He's like, that's the thing that I'm finding that we're finding out about Locke is that he knows when to act and he knows when to just stay out of sight.
Yeah.
Because he's off on his he has his own spiritual and physical journey that he is going through right now, but he is the only one who really understands what's kind of going on with the island.
Yeah.
And I think his main goal is to try and get as many people to see that as he can.
And it's 2 weeks in a row where I think he's the best / worst guidance counselor.
Yeah.
I mean, like, very matter-of-factly, very hardcore. All right, Charlie, I'll give you 3 chances. I'll give you can ask for your drugs 3 times, and on the 3rd time, I'll give them back. But I love his thinking. He's like, choose to give up drugs. Don't give up because you run out, And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Where was John Locke in our DARE classes?
Exactly. And that's the thing where he's also telling him where it's like, because Charlie's like, how come you just don't throw it away? It's like, because then you wouldn't have a choice. It's like, and that's the thing that Locke is sort of abiding by. It's like, everybody has a choice to do these things. It's kind of like what he was telling Jack, like the two episodes ago, where he's like, he's got to do his own thing. You have to do your own thing. You have to be the person to decide how far you take this. Are you going to keep going on your journey? And so, that's what he's doing with Charlie. I think probably my favorite scene in this episode was him talking to Charlie about the chrysalis, the cocoon.
Oh yeah.
And Charlie's just like, yeah, it's a butterfly cocoon. He's just like, no, it's a moth cocoon. He's like, butterflies, they get, whatever, but moths don't get enough coverage because they spin silk, they do all of these things. Like, they're beautiful in their own right. And that's like his whole conversation is him telling Charlie, like, I can help you. I can do anything you want me to do that'll help you be a better person. But it's the fact that you have to struggle, that we have to struggle, that makes us into the people who can survive on our own.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, dude.
What's that line? He's like, suffering is nature's way of making us strong, or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, dude. It was a good scene.
Such a good scene. And then I love, man, when it I feel like this show is just underrated, which is a weird thing to say about a show that captured people's attention.
That was like a phenomenon at the time,
that was a worldwide phenomenon for like 6 years. And it feels weird to say that, but Charlie being the only one small enough that could go through this little tunnel that everybody's carved out to save Jack.
Walt could have done it.
But whatever. Vincent,
I don't trust that Walt kid.
Vincent could have done it, but we're not going to kill the only dog on this island.
Yeah.
The fact that Charlie's the only one who can do it, and his crawling through this cave just made me think of, like, damn it, John Locke. Damn it, Damon Lindelof. Like, Charlie's the moth. Charlie is the moth in this episode, literally crawling his way through adversity, through struggle, just to get to his end goal. And it perfectly shows again when
it's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor. It's also literal.
It's a literal metaphor.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Also, it's heartbreaking, like, his reasoning, because he says, Michael, if something happens to you, who's going to look after your kid? Jin, you have your wife here. Boone, you have your sister. He's like,
I've got no one.
I got no one. Let me do it. I'm like,
I'm like, damn, man, damn it, Charlie.
So, and then after that, I love the scene with him and Jack in the cave. Like, after he gets to him, and they're kind of knowing that they're going to run out of oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a really good, like, it wasn't anything like Locke's speech to him. That was like inspirational. Like we said, that kind of sums up Charlie. His scene with Jack wasn't. It was just two guys talking. And like, that was the first time we actually saw like, no, Charlie, like, you know, you're here for a reason. Like, you're not useless, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Jack says it took a lot of courage to crawl through that to save me. You know, like it was just a cool little moment. And they even joke around, you know, about he's going to confess to Jack. And Jack's like, look, I'm no saint either, you know? And then that's when he sees the moth and he follows it. And that's when he breaks out of his cave cocoon, you know?
Yeah. So. I really liked that scene too. Cause it's kind of the first time we've seen Charlie as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's one of the things that I started seeing, you know, just looking back at the episodes, you know, where Charlie's been pretty prominent, is that like, I know everybody with the exception of like Walt is, you know, grown up, they're adults. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like Charlie just has this sort of youthfulness to him that I think sort of, he's not as adult as like Kate or Sawyer or Saeed or somebody like that, you know, like, so him arguing with Jack earlier in the episode saying that you think I'm just a child, like, yeah, I could really see that. So I really liked how that conversation in the caves, sort of the first time we as the audience are also seeing Charlie as, no, like, you're an adult, you've been through stuff, you've done your fair share, you know, you've gone through so much. And yeah, like this is that moment where where we and Charlie are realizing that, yeah, you know, he's a grown man, you know, and he made his decision, you know. It's like, I think that, yeah, I thought that was really cool.
So a couple of last notes. At the end, Walt asks Michael, he's like, oh, so these are caves, these are cool. Can we live here now? What does Michael do? He just straight up turns his head and looks at Sun, checking her out. I'm like, oh, God.
I screamed at my TV. I was like, damn it, Michael. No, stop it.
But, okay, what are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of Sun.
That's what I was going to say.
And like one mind. Like one mind. Steel trap, dude.
Lost Legacies. We found it. You talk about Sun scene?
Yeah. Like, again, everybody has a scene in this episode that I just really love. And her scene is where Jin is trying to like clean his wound. She goes up to him. Sun goes up to Jin and is just like, hey, like, you should get that looked at. You should ask the doctor to take a look at it. And Jin's like, no, it's okay, I'll be fine. And he barely looks at her and goes back to clean his wound, and then he stops and looks at Sun and he's like, what are you wearing? And she's just wearing like a very sort of thin, I don't know, like a tank top.
Yeah, it's like a tank top or like a blouse type thing.
Yeah. And
not very revealing, but there's a lot of skin, more than we've seen of Sun so this far.
Yeah, you can see her shoulders, her, you know, her neckline, you know, and he's just like, you know, like cover up. You need to cover up right now. And she just like, she sort of like puts her head down, like she's contemplating it, and then she just straight up looks at her husband and is like, it's too hot in here.
Yeah. It's not even an argument. She just says it. It's a fact.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I love that.
And he doesn't argue either. It kind of stops and just like soaks it in, you know? Mm-hmm. It's almost like not so much surprise that she like spoke up, but more like, oh, she's right. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a weird little moment that I wasn't expecting from Jin. Because Sun's been on this little arc. Like, we know she's kind of getting stronger, more independent. We've seen that that's what she wants. That's her goal. So this is to see that from Jin. He's just like, okay.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. We'll see where that goes. Yeah, everyone had something cool except for Claire, unless Claire's the one who took out Saeed.
Oh, hey, that's true.
What if it's Claire's baby? He's like Jaegering his mom. No, he's just inside, like Pacific Rim, but he's just moving his mom. Gypsy Danger.
I don't think that's how babies work, Matt.
I don't know, dude. Or it's like the movie Upgrade. Instead of an AI, it's just your baby, your unborn baby, taking out people.
You know what? It's lost, so I'm not even going to argue against that.
So why do you go after Saeed? Maybe he's a racist baby.
Oh my god.
Those are Matt's predictions.
Those are Matt's predictions.
The racist baby is Jaegering his mother. If you're listening to this and you don't know what a Jaeger is, go watch Pacific Rim.
Please go check out the criminally underrated Guillermo del Toro masterpiece that is Pacific Rim. Not the second one. The second one is garbage. Just the original Pacific Rim. It's amazing. You're welcome.
So to end our kind of discussion on this episode, Charlie finally asks Locke at the end for the drugs the third time.
Mm-hmm.
Locke's like disappointed when he gives him the drugs, and Charlie's just like, he flicks it into the fire, and Locke says, "I'm proud of you." And Charlie's like, yes. Oh, and then when they see the moth like kind of fly out of the caves into the night sky. Cool moment, beautiful moment, except he threw the bag of heroin into the fire that everyone's standing around, and the fire that is cooking the boar.
That is literally the same thing I thought. As soon as he did that, I was like, okay, this is great symbolism. I get symbolically why you're doing this, but you've also just tainted the air and the pig around you. You're just going to get everybody addicted now.
I don't know much about heroin, so I don't know if like the fire would just kill everything, or would it be in the air? Like, I don't know. Like,
I've never done it, so I don't know. I don't know the effects of it, but I'm pretty sure it's not a good idea.
With heroin.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Maybe we'll see the ramifications of that.
Maybe. Yeah. Next episode is just everybody tripping in this dangerous cave off of heroin-laced boar.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's like that episode of The 100. Remember where everyone's tripping out?
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's right.
Man. Whatever the hell we want to.
Oh, my gosh.
So MVPs.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and this one's tough. See, like I feel like I'm always like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna give it to the main person or not.
But they kind of earn it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Far. That's the thing you were talking about, how like, like they do, it's their episode, so it's hard not to give it to them. But I will say, I think, and I feel like I'm right in this, but I'm not going to give it to Charlie. I'm going to give it to Locke.
Right.
Just because his role in this episode was so important, and Terry O'Quinn just plays the hell out of that character with so much ambiguity, but also so much earnestness that like I as a viewer know that something's not right about Locke. I know more about Locke than anybody else on the island at this point. So as a viewer, I'm a little untrusting. But as a character, if I were in that same situation, I think I would also, I would follow Locke's lessons to the T. I'd be like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. You are some kind of guru, some sort of spiritual guide. So I'm gonna give it to Terry.
I would totally be on the Locke bandwagon if I was like a survivor on that flight.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing, because we discussed it last week with his dealing with Charlie, and I called him the manipulative guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Because that's what he did, especially the way he said, look up, because he knew the guitar was up there. This week as well, like he straight up used Charlie as bait to catch the boar, and man, that pissed Charlie off. So yeah, I mean, he's very manipulative, and that's kind of like the danger. You're like, okay, who is this guy? Like, we've seen some of his backstory, like at least the later part, right before the flight. I'm like, okay, who is this guy? And what did he see on this island? What else does he know that we don't know? if you're giving it to Terry O'Quinn for Locke, I'll go ahead and give it to Dominic Monaghan for Charlie. Because, yeah, this episode was really, even though we said like the flashbacks weren't that great, especially compared to the previous episodes, it's still necessary to understand Charlie. Like, my feelings about Charlie now are different than they were before in a better way. It's a better understanding. So I think that's less to do with the acting for sure and more of the writing and the way his story was told. But yeah, man, Dominic Monaghan, kudos to him.
Now, real quick, before we end the episode, I just wanted to ask, because I know you told me this a while back, but correct me if I'm wrong, Drive Shaft and that whole dynamic, that whole relationship, that's based loosely off of Oasis, right?
Kind of. I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that. Yeah, like they said, because originally the character Charlie was supposed to be like this middle-aged guy in his 50s, the washed-up rocker.
Yeah.
And they loved Dominic Monaghan so much, they cast him as it instead. And yeah, like it was just like it's a loose inspiration because I don't know a lot about Oasis, but I know that the two brothers, they like hate each other. It's not like sibling rivalry. Like they hate each other. They've gotten into fights, physical fights, and not like, oh, we're brothers, we're fighting. Like, no, like they would probably kill each other if they were the last two people on an island.
Damn.
You know? I was like, holy crap. Is that why they pulled out such good music?
You know, struggle and adversity and all that.
Art comes from suffering, Sam.
Oh, my God. Don't
suffering
give me that.
Is nature's way of making us strong.
All right, John Locke.
So, yeah, so that's interesting parallel between Oasis and Drive Shaft. And I wrote in notes, I'm like, ugh, Big Brothers are the worst. Man, like, yeah,
they are.
His brother, he dropped the ball, man. Like, it was Charlie's decision, but yeah, like he screwed it up, you know. And then afterwards, like he kind of tried to help Charlie, but not really.
Yeah, not really. Just mostly he told Charlie no, and then was like, "You're still using like, man, just because you've got a daughter." And some sweaters and some glasses, that doesn't make you a better person.
Yeah.
Whatever. Liam, get bent, Liam.
Yeah, and one of the brothers from Oasis is named Liam, right?
Oh, hey.
Nolan Liam Gallagher.
Oh, okay.
I just the name Drive Shaft is crazy. Last week, Locke mentioned their self-titled debut album, Drive Shaft. And the second album, Oil Change, which is just stupid. Yeah. And in this episode, Charlie mentions for the second tour he's trying to do, it's like a 6-week gig or whatever, opening up for a band called, what was it? Meat Locker?
Yeah, something like that.
Something. I'm like, who the hell is naming these bands?
I don't know about you, dude, but I have
Give them more money, damn it. I love it.
I have a list of potential fake bands that I'm just like, yep. if I ever need to pull something, I'll be like, oh, here you go. Here's it reminds me. There's a fake band that they have in season 6 of Community. I'm sorry, is it season 6? Season 5? Season 6. That Britta bonds over with another character. And the band is called Valerie is Sleeping. What I didn't know until like a couple of weeks ago, is that there's a whole like spreadsheet with what looks like almost 100 fake band names, and Valerie is Sleeping is like almost at the bottom of the list. And some of those names are just so wild. I'll send it to you later. But
do they make it just for the show or?
Yeah. And it's not even for like the whole season. It's literally just an episode. Britta bonds over the band with another character, and she gets like an 11-second music video sequence where she's like in the song and she's singing it, and then it just cuts to something else, and that's it. That's it. It's over
Valerie's
100 band names just for this 11-second joke. It's great.
I love it. Okay, so finally, none of your Sam's predictions have came forward this episode. Do you have any new ones?
My only prediction is that the guy who knocked out, or the person who knocked out Saeed, is Locke.
Oh.
And I'm trying to think. I want to do like an island specific one, but I don't really know. Yeah, I don't really know. I guess I'll think about it, and maybe I'll have one for next week. But
okay, so we'll just stick with that one. Okay.
Yeah, so Locke is the perpetrator, the culprit.
All right. Well,
John
next
Locke,
time,
racist?
The what?
John Locke, racist?
I don't know. I still like the racist unborn baby idea.
Jaeger and Claire. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that would be my Lost reboot. All right, so next week we're talking about season 1, episode 8, Confidence Man. A survivor suffers from a life-threatening asthma attack after their inhaler goes missing. Now, Jack faces a difficult question. What the hell do we do about Sawyer? Oh, you thought we were ending. Nope, I got one more thing to bring up. So what I didn't realize until this watch, this show like really kind of sets you up for what's coming next. So Kate's episode ended with that creepy shot on Lost. On Locke. I'm sorry. Her episode ends with that shot on Locke. Locke's episode, there was a lot of stuff going on with Jack. Jack's episode, you see where I'm going? It starts setting up Sun. Sun's episode started setting up Charlie. That's what I realized it. So this episode, Charlie's episode, there was a lot of stuff with Sawyer. That I think, and we were talking about like, oh man, this guy, that was cruel, man. We're going to see more of him, especially judging by that episode description that I had to write myself. We'll see what's going to happen with Sawyer next week. But yeah, it's really interesting because Sawyer is this quote unquote wild card while everyone's trying to start like bond together. He's just so in chaos, and there's going to be a point in time like, what do we do? Like realistically, what would you do? With someone like that? Like we're literally fighting for our lives, and this person may be threatening that. Yeah. Man, we're getting into some real Lord of the Flies territory here. So that's a Lord of the Flies cookie. So that's next week, Confidence Man. Till then, you can find me at Twitter at _Matt Jimenez or Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Sam, where can we find you?
You can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at Reel, that's REEL, Texas Weirdo.
Cool. Till next week. Get lost.
Get lost.